and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On today's show, we will be covering Deutsche Bank, money market reform, and the Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures on today's American Confidant.
Loading the American Confidant intro.
We have $15 billion in gold in our treasury. We don't own an ounce.
And one of the problems is we don't have the gold. Other places have the gold.
It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
The American Confidant.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, The American Confidant, to stay up to date with every episode. And be sure to like, comment, and share. We want to hear from you, the people. Welcome to the American Confidant. I'm Jim LaFave, and I'm joined in the studio, as always, with my co-patriot, my lovely partner in crime, Cash. How are you, baby?
Cha-ching-ching, I'm here.
You sure are, man.
Beautiful day today.
It sure is. And
Great being with you.
We'll be joined later with Rick at the GSI exchange on the trading floor. We're going to take a moment and go into the news with Geneva. Geneva, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Jim. Stocks hit back-to-back losses and Dow Transport shed 3.6%. U.S. stocks ended lower for a second straight session Wednesday as investors digested mixed earnings. According to the Beige Book survey released by the Federal Reserve on Wednesday, they found that the economy expanded a modest pace from mid-May through July, but little has changed from spring. Deutsche Bank is reportedly paying danger money to hire bankers worried about joining the troubled bank. As Deutsche Bank shutters its trading business, the German lender is doubling down on wealth management. The firm is offering lucrative pay packages to entice a team of 13 bankers from Credit Suisse in Italy to focus on wealthy clients worth at least $30 million, according to a report at the Financial Times. In early July, the bank had already announced it would be restructuring its business away from equities trading in the U.S. St. Louis Park Council reinstates the Pledge of Allegiance after an uproar. While the country grows more and more divided, the St. Louis Park City Council on Monday voted unanimously to reverse its June decision to drop the Pledge of Allegiance from the beginning of its meetings. The 7-0 vote came at the end of a very tense half-hour meeting before a packed gallery of vocal spectators, many of whom held signs and miniature American flags. There were numerous threats made against the council members until the change was made. It is not clear if those threats were the sole reason for the reversal. And back to you guys in the studio. Thank you.
The Pledge of Allegiance. You know, thanks, Geneva. When I was a kid, I had to say that every day. You know, the Pledge of Allegiance. Sometime, I don't know what that means, but what's wrong with that, you know? What's wrong with one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for everybody? Cash, what do we got on the banks, man? What's going on with those rotten guys?
Well, it's an interesting day, Jim. We've been hearing a lot about Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank's back in the news. They're Germany's largest bank, by the way, Jim. And they've been having some major issues. There's been billions of dollars being pulled out of Deutsche Bank daily by depositors who no longer trust the bank. It is weakening dramatically as we speak. We'll be talking to Rick from our trading floor, and he'll give us more on that coming up. But Deutsche Bank has about $45 trillion in a derivative exposure, and it also threatens our own financial system.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing. Aren't they Europe's biggest bank, Cash?
They are. They're Germany's number one bank. And if they should go under, Jim, there's no escaping it. We will feel the results here.
Okay, so when Lehman went under, right, and the big bailout happened, if Deutsche Bank goes under, has the EU committed to bailing Deutsche Bank out?
Well, I don't know that the EU can. They've never fully recovered. They've got a number of their member states that are still on the fringes: Italy, Greece, Spain. They haven't fully recovered yet, Jim.
You know, Cash, if this ship goes down, Deutsche Bank, I mean, here in America, it's not like, well, it's some German bank. I mean, it's not my bank. It's a German bank. You know, it's not going to, but it will affect me, won't it?
Well, it's called contagion, Jim, and contagion spreads throughout the entire financial system. We saw that in 2008. Remember when we failed, Greenland as a country almost collapsed entirely because they were so heavily invested in U.S. derivatives, and they didn't even know about it, Jim.
I got a very cheap timeshare over in Greenland around that time.
Well, I hope it thaws out soon.
No, but seriously, so all this stuff is deeply connected. And Deutsche is so huge.
Deutsche is massive, Jim. They are a massive bank that can literally disrupt our entire global financial system. They've just recently pulled out of the U.S. stock market. In fact, they were so bad.
That's what I heard, that they shelved their entire equities division, right? Didn't they fold it all up?
They did.
Okay.
They did.
Whoa.
So they're no longer here in the United States trading on our markets. They're trying to break up the bank. They've had some realignments at the top, and the problems aren't over. It's just beginning.
So all of this points to who buys the debt. I recently heard this guy, Mark Warner. He's the Virginia senator. Somebody was talking on, I think it was on Rush Limbaugh today. They were talking about this guy saying that he wants to come out and run against Trump. And he wants to run because nobody's talking about the debt. Not a Republican, not Trump, not the Democrats, none of them.
And debt is growing. Corporate debt's growing. Government debt is growing. Worldwide debt is growing. Credit is growing. Jim, it's a major problem. There are now over 8 million auto loans here in the United States that are 90 days or more past due. 8 million.
But what do you mean, Cash? My stocks are doing fine.
Well, maybe so. But remember, Jim, in 1929, the stock market was raging. Real estate was doing well.
That's right.
But do you remember, Jim, and you and I, of course, weren't around, but from history, we remember, one of the big problems were banks were doing great, investors were doing great, everything looked good, and happy days were here again.
This is starting to sound familiar.
You know, the farmers started failing in 1929. Okay. Real estate started faltering.
Okay.
Corporations stopped paying dividends, and the next thing you know, September rolled around, and boom, the fertilizer hit the fan, Jim, and it was over.
Fertilizer hit the fan.
That was it.
Boy, did it smell.
Oh, gosh, Jim. It was so bad the Dust Bowl blew across the United States and almost ruined the entire country.
Well, the stink from this one, I'm reading that all of a sudden, all trucking industries are going out of business.
That was a problem in 1929.
Correct. Major, all of a sudden, not hauling any goods and services being transported, right? I want to see a high stock market, and I've got Amazon stock. Hey, my Amazon stock is doing great. Meanwhile, Amazon, like the big rotten tarantula it is, ate up all the local businesses, right?
That were contributing to the tax base.
That's right. So they were paying taxes, and they snagged all that up. They sucked the revenue out of there, and they gave it all to Jeff Bezos.
But, Jim, here's the thing. These small mom-and-pop shops are one of the biggest contributors to our tax base.
That's correct.
And here you got Amazon, who barely pays any tax
That's
at
right.
all.
And they suck all that business out. They dry up the tax base, and then they go ahead and they promote their stock.
But taxes transformed, hasn't it, Jim? Now we pay all kinds of hidden taxes on everything.
Inflation.
Everything, Jim. There is nothing you can buy in America that isn't taxed in some way, shape, or form.
That's correct.
It's a problem, and we think that everything's okay, but when you really look at it, if you were to analyze your own paycheck, Jim, there you go.
Let's hear from Rick over at the trading floor. I want to hear what's going on the gold and silver market. Rick, what do you got for us over there? You on the line?
Hey, Jim, how's it going? Great to be here again. Well, we had Fed Chairman Powell speak today in France, and he said that he was very concerned in this meeting about meeting the inflation target, which is 2%. He mentioned that if we didn't meet that target, there could potentially be a rate decision. Now, we don't know if he's going to want to lower interest rates or if he's going to want to raise them. But we do have to take into consideration, buddy, that he is, at this point, considering one more rate hike. What's he going to do?
Rick, did you say a rate hike?
Rick, you know that I don't believe that. Come on now, this guy can't raise rates, can he?
Well, he doesn't want to lower them because the economy is doing so well based on his indicators. So at this point, yes, he could do one more rate hike and then basically cause a tailspin, which is what Ben Bernanke did back in 2008, if you recall.
What about the balance sheet? You heard anything on that?
Nothing. Everything right now is pretty much quiet. The Dow didn't do anything. It's barely up 4 points, trading at 27,362. Oil is at $58.07. It's only down $1.50. We're starting to see inflation rise in oil, not because of tensions in the Middle East. It's inflation. We have gold right now currently trading at $1,404. It's down $8.50, which isn't much. We're seeing some profit taking. It's understandable. Mm-hmm. In silver, we're seeing a lot of speculation come in. Prices are driving silver up. It's trading at 15.59. It's up 24 cents today.
Oh yeah, baby, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. You know, a lot of our clients are basically loading up right now in precious metals. They're moving out of the stock market. They don't want to wait for the market to correct itself. After today's report that Deutsche Bank is in trouble and that it's having a bank run. I mean, losing $1 billion a day on, depositors' withdrawals, that could, at this point, trigger the next recession.
Rick, I want to thank you for joining in on us, man. You go sell that metal. We'll check in with you on the next one. Cash, we were talking a little bit about it before the show today that, if gold goes up, and it historically, and again, they always move on it. Gold is currency. Bank of International Settlements, Rick shared with us previous show. They pegged this as tier 1 currency. The central bank boys are all acknowledging this as A1 money now. So how's this gold going to go up and stay in the hands of the American people? And we talked about CUSIP, or the Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures. Give us a little bit about CUSIP, Cash.
Jim, we talked in 2008. As the economy was faltering, there was a mass movement into precious metals, and this was record territory. We had never seen such an appetite for gold and silver since the 1980s when Nixon put it back on the streets. President Nixon thought he was doing something when he released gold, or took us off the gold standard and essentially closed the gold window, or the trading window for gold. And he felt that by putting it out on the streets, making it available to the public, that the prices would decline. He misestimated the demand, the appetite that the public had for real money. And we had the same thing happen in 2008. In 2008, the dollar was faltering. It had dropped, and I've talked about that before. The dollar went down to 72 points in its basket against its basket of currencies. It was almost the death knell for the dollar. Well, banks were unprepared for it. They didn't expect the appetite for solid, sound money. And in this case, Americans were turning to bullion gold, bullion silver. A lot of people bought junk silver, which is bags of old pre-1964 silver half dollars, quarters, dimes, and nickels. They were buying it in droves.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking at the list here. Junk bags are on the CUSIP list.
They are.
Also, I've got gold American Eagles. I've got Krugerrands, Maple Leaves.
Well, this CUSIP list that you're talking about, at the end of the day, here's what happened. When the government saw that Americans were willing to trade their greenbacks for alternative currency, something solid of value, they realized that the demand for gold and silver was tremendous. Now, we talked about on this show, Jim, Donald Trump is in favor of a gold standard.
He certainly
has come out and said it publicly.
But his big question was, who's got the gold?
Well, the American people have the gold, don't they, Jim? They've got it in the form of Krugerrands,
right, yeah.
Maple Leafs, American Eagles.
Wait a minute, American Eagle, 7M5331AA6.
It sounds like an inmate, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Report for duty.
Guess who's the prisoner?
The holder.
Because at the end of the day, Jim, these metals have been listed for easy identification and recall in preparation for a gold standard.
This is the recall list, isn't it?
That's exactly right. We can see it. Jim, every bullion product is listed. There are 93 products on this list.
Every one. They haven't missed one, did they?
Well, there are several products, Jim, that are not on the list.
Pre-1933 U.S. gold, I see, is not on the list.
Well, numismatics are not on the list. That's
right.
Correct. But, you don't have to turn to numismatics. And a lot of people are not interested in becoming collectors. And that's not what this is about. This is about the ability to hold on to metals under a gold confiscation. Jim, recall in 1933, when the bullion was taken away from the American public, there was an exemption clause. Heads of state, governments, and wealthy individuals took full advantage because they owned gold during that period when the average American couldn't. As we talked about when Warren Buffett buys stocks, he goes in one door, we go in the other.
He goes in the preferred door, and we come out the common back door, right?
That's exactly right. And it's the same thing with the gold standard. When you're on a gold standard, there are metals that can be retained. People can hold on to certain metals. They should contact GSI Exchange and request the CUSIP list. Become informed, because if you're holding bags of silver, if you're holding American Eagles, Krugerrands, Maple Leafs, you're going to want to know that these metals cannot be retained under a gold act. If we go back on the gold standard, and there are several bills out there right now calling for the dollar to be defined by a fixed weight of gold, and we've talked about it. If we go on that standard, Jim, people who are holding common bullion won't be able to hold it.
You know, again, we're in the meltdown of the fiat world, the pretend world.
Yes.
And with the pretend world, the real valuable assets for 5,000 years are starting to shine. And
Jim, this world is changing. It's changing fast. And you know, there are big obstacles that are coming our way. You know, at the top of the show, we talked about Deutsche Bank's failure. I've got a clip, Jim, of what happens when banks fail.
Yeah, let's go to that.
I have some news for you, folks. I was just talking to old man Potter, and he's guaranteed cash payments to the bank. The bank's going to reopen next week.
But, George, I got my money here. Did he guarantee this place?
Well, no, Charlie, I didn't even ask him. We don't need Potter over here.
And I'll take mine now.
No, but you're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours. And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others. You're lending them the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you as best they can. Now, what are you going to do, foreclose on them?
I got $242 in here, and $242 isn't going to break anybody.
Okay, Tom. All right. Here you are. You sign this. You get your money in 60 days.
60 days?
You know, that clip comes from It's a Wonderful Life. These bank runs were real. And what we have right now, Jim, that's threatening us is the Money Market Reform Act. And people don't realize that if they go to the bank, even right now, you try to take out more than $5,000. In fact, it's $3,000. And you talked about it once, Jim, where you talked about the
suspicious activity report.
Yes.
That used to be when I used to go to the bank and get $10,000 in cash out. There was a currency transaction report filed, and that was $10,000, more than $10,000 in cash, or more than $10,000 out in cash. Was a currency transaction report. And then it morphed into the suspicious activity report. And I recommend that people Google that and familiarize themselves. This isn't some hyperbole we're cooking up here. This is the law. And a lot of these laws, if it weren't for the Freedom of Information Act, you know, people wouldn't even know exist that are on the books to totally take their pants down, turn them around, and give them the spanking they don't deserve, man.
You know, Jim, what's suspicious about pulling your money out of the bank? You know, there's nothing illegal about spending $1 million in cash. Nothing at all. But you pull out $10,000 and now you've got a suspicious activity report. You're made to feel like a criminal, like you're doing something wrong with your own money. You know, when did this change, Jim? I mean, there is nothing illegal about owning money. You know, the banks will welcome it in.
That's amazing.
Jim, we recommend putting your money into physical, tangible assets, gold and silver, God's money, real money.
And lock it up.
Hang on to it, because the day is coming where the greenback will no longer stand. And whether we go to a cryptocurrency, a universal currency, or whatever it's going to be, taxes are going to be collected. Banks are going to collect their interest on loans. And, Jim, at the end of the day, money will still have value. It just may not be a greenback.
The metal's not on the CUSIP list.
Yes, Jim. There's a whole series on those that are great products, and you know what? They outperform the market. GSI offers a whole list of products that are not on the CUSIP list. You know, and these are products that we recommend every American should have. Mm-hmm. Jim, it is of the utmost importance to protect your money, and we all can agree on that. At the end of the day, if you're in dollar-denominated assets, you won't hold on to them. If you're holding metals that are on a CUSIP list, and call GSI Exchange to get the CUSIP list.
My first feeling about Trump and the recall of gold and all that all together, it didn't make sense because I felt Trump is really out for the American people, but also I felt that the banks wouldn't allow it. But you know what? With the banks moving on gold, with them naming it Tier 1 currency, with the gold ownership in America being at a record low, I mean, you're talking, what, 2% of Americans own gold and 70% of Germans do?
Jim, I don't want to sound un-American or anything like that, but I'll tell you, the government doesn't run the country. The banks do.
You betcha they do. And that's why that gold's going back. It did in 1933, and it'll go back to the banks then. They've got most of it now. That's why we've got the ratio so high. We've got 92 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold. That shows institutional money coming hard into this metal, into gold right now.
Jim, our listeners need to call GSI Exchange and get the CUSIP list. Find out if the metals that you own have been listed for easy identification and recall.
Thanks, Cash. I want to thank you again. It's great always being with you, man. And Geneva, I want to thank you for being on the news. Again, what a great news broadcast. Shout out to Rick on the GSI trading floor. Thanks, Rick. Go sell that gold. And on behalf of myself, Jim LaFave, thank you so much, the American people. And I do pledge allegiance to this country, the flag. I love it. On the American Confidant.
GSI Exchange, a leading precious metals dealer helping to protect your retirement accounts and delivering precious metals straight to your door. Contact GSI Exchange at 800-474-9159 or visit them on the web at gsiexchange.com.